thought he was walking down. I just didn't get there yet. Yeah. He was on his way. He was on his way. No. I felt like I was at home. I was just following orders.
I'm not sure if we're meeting in executive session tomorrow or not, but I'll make sure I'll just walk this over to Marty.
Okay, thanks. You got that telephone message I left, didn't you? Yeah. Okay. I think you run it off. No problem. Who's running late?
Larry's.
Oh. Yeah. Good.
Good evening. I'd like to call the March 6th City of Joliet Pre-Council meeting to order. The Honorable Mayor Bob Odekirk presiding. Mister, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Odekirk?
Here.
Councilman Dickinson?
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin?
Here.
Councilman Girl?
Here.
Councilman Hug? Just received a phone call. He's running a few minutes late. Councilman Morris?
Here.
Councilman Mudrin?
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman?
Here.
Councilman Turk?
Here.
First on the agenda is a presentation regarding a minority participation ordinance for inclusion and procurement. Larry Ivory, the president of the Illinois Black Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Mayor, City Council, all our distinguished city workers. I'm Cornell Darden Jr., the African American Business Association of Joliet, and we brought Larry Ivory here today to speak about minority participation. It's a very important issue to our members of our business community. Larry Ivory is the past chairman of the National Black Chamber of Commerce, and he's the current president and CEO of the Illinois Black Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Larry Ivory.
Thank you. Let me say to the Honorable Mayor and to this distinguished council, today it is indeed a pleasure to come before you today to talk about a subject near and dear to my heart. As Cornell Darden just mentioned, I am the president of the Illinois Black Chamber of Commerce, past chairman of the board, but also I come with a number of different things that I think makes what I say kind of relevant. I serve on the state level on the procurement policy board for the state of Illinois, appointed by the President of the Senate, President Cullerton. I also serve on the BEP Council that sets the goals for the state, appointed by the Honorable Governor Ronner, and also appointed by Governor Ronner. I serve on the Enterprise Zone Board, who's established the Enterprise Zone selection for all the cities in the state, and also on a special task force that was formed not long ago to kind of take a look at minority inclusion and contracting. It's called the Fair Practice Task Force, which sits the majority minority whip for the House, for the Senate, and one of the leaders of the House, Will Davis. And I say that only to say that I have some experience in the subject matter. My other claim to what little fame I may have, and it's very little, is that the gentleman who wrote affirmative action was a gentleman by the name of the late Dr. Arthur Fletcher. He was a guy who coined the phrase, "A mind is a terrible thing to waste." He was an advisor to President Nixon, President Reagan, and President Bush, and he was Assistant Secretary of Labor. And I spent countless of hours with him understanding these issues in terms of how African Americans were going to get to the next level of being great citizens in this great country. And when we think in terms of the country, You know, our founding fathers had an idea. You know, we have this great society, and that's an idea. I mean, that's all it is, an idea, a great society. And what makes America great is patriotic people standing up and doing what's right, having the courage to look opposition in the face and stand up and do what's really right for the citizens of a great country. And so I think we have a defining moment here in the great city of Joliet to really kind of define and ask the question to be or not to be, to have a minority participation ordinance or not to have one. I can tell you, as you take a look throughout the state and throughout the country, cities like Chicago, Peoria, Springfield, most cities have a diversity and an ordinance that deals with minority participation. Now, the reason that the Chamber has spent its time and its energy on this subject matter, we believe that there is a direct correlation between economics and crime. We believe if you strengthen Black businesses, you strengthen Black communities, you strengthen Black people, and you also help to reduce crime. And you fundamentally, you make any region where you have high crime and poor education, when those things begin to subside, it makes each region more attractive, because all of us know we're competing across the state with other districts, with other cities, to attract talented companies, talented people. And when you reduce crime and improve education, and we say to you there's a direct correlation between the two. But in the city of Joliet, in the 21st century, we haven't seemed to come to grips with a real strategy. And perhaps we don't have a strategy because, you know, maybe it's not important to you. Maybe because you don't really know exactly how to do it without being sued. Because anytime you talk about a minority program, someone talks about a suit, you know. So there may be a number of reasons, but I want to appeal to your greater self and ask you to take a look at the reasons why. Because when you take a look at strategic planning, it takes a look at the forces for and against you. There are a lot of forces for you to make this decision today, I believe, in terms of moving the ordinance on behalf of a lot of very credible people in your community, people who pay taxes, sales taxes, real estate taxes. And you know, Jan and Pat, there's no discrimination when it comes to collecting taxes, is it? Everyone pays their fair share of taxes. You don't get away from it. If you go buy goods and services, you pay it. But when it comes to contracting opportunities, there seems to be some type of, you know, what I call a lack of balance in the approach. Because when you take a look at African-American contracting and African-American participation in the great city of Joliet, I don't think anyone can argue the fact that the numbers aren't the numbers aren't there. And the numbers aren't there not because I believe you don't want to do it, it's that you may not know how to do it. So with our background and experience at a state level, national level, and at a city level, we think we can help you to overcome that obstacle. Once we understand what is the impediment that are preventing you from doing what other cities have already come to understand is fundamentally important to fairness and equity of every citizen. And when we think about that, you know, it's easy for me to stand before you today and tell you how important it is for minority participation, but if I told you that how many lives get impacted by the lack of opportunity, how many other bad things happen because of the economic spiraling of the lack of opportunity, the lack of credit, then it would make an easy case if we could track the economic impact and how it actually impacts you and makes you less attractive on a regional side at the same time. So let me go back to the law, first of all, since I think you have your legal counsel here, is that under 1964, there was the 1964 Civil Rights Act, there was a thing, Congress' infinite wisdom, they called Title VI. Title VI, you can look it up. Title VI says, look, that in plain writing, it says that anytime there's a barrier that prevents any group of people from participating, that the city or any municipality that receives federal dollar must remove that barrier. If not, that city can be sanctioned, federal dollars can be cut, and that there can be other steps taken that would not allow you to participate in federal dollars. Now, sometimes the problem with those laws is that the lack of enforcement that exists. But, you know, I just came back from the White House, and our organization does a lot of work on Capitol Hill. My national president told me to be clear, to express his interest in taking, if nothing happens, to take this to Attorney General Jeff Sessions and file a formal complaint with the Justice Department about the lack thereof of African-American participation. Now, it's the law. We've done this before. It's not a new process for us. It's a clear process for us, but I hope we don't have to do that, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that John and your infinite wisdom, Betty and your outstanding leadership, Don and your leadership, and the mayor, that you take time to ask yourself the fundamental question, why not have a minority participation? Because if you don't have it, what will happen is you won't have participation. All across the country, where there is no goals that are set, I can tell you at the state level, city level, national level, if we didn't have a goal, then minority participation would be non-existent. It simply would not exist. People are comfortable doing business the way they've done business. Unfortunately, there has not been with people of color, like the people who are standing behind me. So the courts and Congress decided in their infinite wisdom that we had to do something to correct that, and to correct it in such a way that would make sense for everyone. Now, sometimes there's a disparity study, there's other issues that you can take a look at, but I ask you to consult your own interests as well as our interests, and to do the right thing by putting together an ordinance that would, for the first time in the history, to celebrate this defining moment for this council, to do the right thing, to make minority participation a part of life here in Joliet, to get taxes from every African American, but yet, you know, they should have a right. You know, we used to have, when you talk about the Boston Tea Party, what was that? That was taxation without representation, right? We knew that was a part of American history. But when African Americans contribute to highway infrastructure and sales tax, and they don't get a fair participation, that's again taxation without representation. And what that led to us was the Boston Tea Party, a whole lot of angry people. When people don't get an opportunity, they're gonna get angry. When they get angry, they're gonna get frustrated, they're gonna make mistakes they ought not to make, and they're gonna do things they probably shouldn't do. I'm not saying that that's gonna happen in the wonderful city of Joliet, but when people don't have the opportunity, I can assure you, people won't be locked out forever, ladies and gentlemen. They will fight, they will do what it takes. I'm asking you, and your infinite wisdom, to take time and to come into the 21st century like what every major city has done. They have done, and they have an ordinance for participation. You do not have it. You're in the dark ages. You're not following the law. And I think you have a lot of people who are disappointed. Now, I've also, in my role as a state leader, have contacted our chambers throughout the state and said, look, guys, there are defining moments for us also. If our friends in Joliet has a problem, we also have a problem also. And it means that we have to stand with them, no different than we had to stand with civil rights. We got to stand with them. I have to call all my friends from all around the state to come to Joliet and make sure that you don't take us lightly. And I know that that's not what you want. It's not what I want. We are all too busy. There's a heightened sensitivity when it comes to elections. We're trying to find a governor or a current governor or a new governor. Those are big issues for us. This is not a big issue that we can't overcome. So I caution you, I ask you to appeal to your own interests today, to move forward with Cornell and his team to put together an ordinance that moves you into the 21st century and creates an environment that we can celebrate. So I can go back on the national level and say, you know what? Joliet has come around, just like Decatur, just like Peoria. They've done what's right, and we can celebrate real successes. Now, we know, even when you set a goal, that we also have to build capacity. And someone says the argument is that we would do this, Larry, but only if we only had African Americans in the city of Joliet that would participate. Now, I'm puzzled by that, quite frankly, because you don't have contractors that do work for you that only live in Joliet. So why do we have a separate standard for African Americans? It would be great if the African Americans who were here, like Willie Sellers and others, were at capacity, because the reality of it is you don't have a lot of capacity. But our job should be, and this council job should help to build capacity to create more jobs and create more opportunities. I think I've taken enough of your very valuable time. I appreciate you taking time to listen to me, and I ask you to consult your own interests as well as ours. Thank you.
Thank you. David, previously this issue had been, this goes back a few years ago, but it had been with the, drawing a blank on the committee.
Diversity Committee. That's my understanding is, yeah, years ago, that committee looked at this subject matter again. Maybe council members could comment on that, but yeah.
Well, we did, and I thought there was an ordinance in place. The problem was the contractors that come in, they hire minority contractors, but they don't hire locally. They go outside of the city of Joliet. That's what one of the problems were at that time. And then when we were building the Water's Edge, we did something different and we were able to get some local contractors in there at that time. But this is a county project, right? So do we have any say? I mean, it's a partnership, but
well, I think it's a response to a county project. I think, and I want to speak for you, Mr. Ivory, I think the argument is that this isn't about one project. It's about a pattern of projects. So, I guess, Marty, maybe you could chime in.
Sure.
Is there a city ordinance that would cover what Silver Cross Hospital does, or the Park District or Will County on their projects?
Yeah, we actually have an ordinance or specifications that are included in all our bid documents for minority participation. So those are, Jim, maybe you can answer how long those have been in place. Decades, as far as I know.
Yeah, they've been at least, yeah, I've been almost over 30 years, they've been in place, obviously before I got here. That's a 10% minority participation, Rachel's testing, yes.
And is that a Joliet project?
That's for our projects, you know, whether we use motor fuel tax or our own local money in public works and at least.
So the city of Joliet has an ordinance that applies to Joliet projects, but not citywide, just to what we do here within the city.
It's actually, Mayor, it's actually a special provision we put in our contracts. I don't know if it's actually ordinance, but it's a special provision we put in there, and we have the contractors give us their time sheets for their workforce, and we always check that as part of the procedure before we make payments.
And Mayor, if I could, we did receive from the Cordell copies of a number of other ordinances adopted by some multiple cities across the nation. And as Marty said, even though we have this goal in the bid specifications, in just doing some quick checking, we don't have an ordinance necessarily that incorporates that policy, but there has been the practice to require that. It's these are very lengthy, or many of them are lengthy ordinances, and I don't know if that committee previously looked at an ordinance as to whether or not they wanted to incorporate maybe goals or this an ordinance, or if maybe the bid specifications was an outgrowth or a recommendation of that committee.
Does the committee want to address this? Take another look at it.
I'm no longer, chairman is.
Sir, I have the distinct pleasure of having the diversity committee. And so what I would like to do is take a look at what is there before us with some of the ordinance. I know we don't have the final say, it will then go to legislation, but I would love for them to come back to diversity and let us go through that. And then we can, do next steps from there.
Okay.
So we can set that meeting up. I'll get with Cornell and some of the others, and then we will be able to set that diversity meeting up, and then we will begin to discuss what steps and what requirements are there in our, even the ones that are in our bid procurement. So we can talk about that for sure. And let's do that ASAP. As soon as possible, let's get together, Mayor, if that's okay.
Yep.
And schedule a meeting with diversity.
Okay.
And if I may, Betty, just to reiterate, we did look at that before. It is the 10%, but like I said, some of the other contracts that got the low bid, they would get their own minority contractors. So it wasn't specified that, and I don't think we can say they have to get local people. And that was part of the problem. They were going, women are minorities, and they were going outside and getting their minority contractors that they've always worked with. That was part of the problem we didn't know how to work with, or work our way through.
Yeah. What we will do is take our time and walk through each piece, find out what the requirements are, and then go from there. We'll then send it from diversity over to legislative.
Sure, or report back to the body.
Right, we'll report back and then send over. Okay.
Okay.
All right, we'll do that, and I will get with Cornell. We'll set up a date that's convenient for. Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor, I just want to be clear. Y'all know I'm never clear, but I'm going to try to get clear. Listen, so I don't know if Marty, David, or Jim. So what's in place now is that just for construction, or is that for all city bids? Because I'm under the impression that Larry and Cornell is kind of putting a blanket over everything that the city contracts out. If it's materials that the city purchase, so it's nothing. And I read through the ordinance that we have now. I'm gonna call it ordinance, what we have now. But it didn't, to me, it didn't read that way. So that's why I just wanted to be clear that what Mr. Ivory is talking about and Cornell is a little different than what we have now. Does that make sense, or? Marty?
Well, what I can say is what they sent was 300 plus pages.
No, not but what we have now. Is that covering what they're talking about? Or what they're talking about is more than what we have now, is what I'm trying to get clear on. You know what I'm saying? Because what I read was it was 10% of construction, and I know Mr. Trisner signed it, but that doesn't cover if someone wanted to buy, or if it was a minority company selling light bulbs or selling toilet paper.
Yeah, sure.
The current, I guess I call it an ordinance too, that's in place, that's more geared towards workforce, I believe. Is that correct? Yes. Not contracting.
Yes.
Yeah, so what we're talking about deals with contracting. So we're not talking about workforce. Workforce is a totally separate issue. And like Mr. Councilman Morris was saying, we're talking about something that's more comprehensive and that covers all city procurement.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
So then I guess my response is then if they could narrow down what they're actually asking for in the documents. Then.
Right, and I just wanted to be clear before we move to the diversity committee that everyone knows what's coming. It's not
workforce. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I had a question, Mr. Ivory. Could I ask you a question? You seem well versed on this issue. And again, thank you for being here. Pleasure to meet you. Sorry I was late. That's due to our beautiful historic bridges. We had a wonderful barge coming through. I called Councilwoman Quillman and let her know. Are you suggesting to look at a very focused minority ordinance that would cover African-American participation? Or are you looking at a broader one for African-American, Latino, female, the whole, all groups of anybody who's defined as minority?
Well, based upon the federal guidelines, you cannot exclude other minorities in the process. As most people well know in the disparities, because when you take a look at the Supreme Court cases, Adirondack and Croson, they deal with reverse discrimination, where the issues of discrimination based upon a certain criteria. So when we talk about an ordinance, are we talking about participation? We're talking about inclusion in terms of African Americans and other minorities also. Now, under certain conditions, you can have a exclusive goal. The governor signed an executive order in the state of Illinois, the sheltered market, which was sponsored by the chamber, that fundamentally said, look, the sheltered market would allow you to set aside projects and have participation based upon when you have a significant number of people in a specific area who have not participated, and the shelter market gives them a chance to have negotiated bids and non-negotiated bids. So in a case where you can have, specifically for African Americans, which is probably a significant portion of your population, if you have a disparity study, and disparity study shows you over or underutilization of any particular group, because you could have a disparity study and say white women are overutilized. Therefore, they would not be included in the protected class. And I think the key thing is, Larry, and I know you are very, I got briefed on my way up here in terms of the best and the brightest, and they
Thank you, Willie.
How much you pay?
But I would,
That's the question.
what I would recommend would be this, ladies and gentlemen, is that we sit down and we can debate this issue for a long time. We can take a look at best practices of other cities who have come this path in this direction, and we can sit down and craft something that I think you guys would be proud of, and that the city would be proud of, and the people would be proud of. Come back together, you know, see what people like and don't like, and if we have to take some things off the table, add something to it, we add it to it. But at the end of the day, we get something done that makes sense for everybody. And the reality of it is that when you take a look, if you were to do a disparity study, I think, Mayor, that your disparities would say that African-American participation in the great city of Joliet is god-awful. And that's not because I think you want it to be god-awful. It's the fact that there is no system and process in place by which you can significantly increase minority participation, because you may have another issue in terms of bonding, in terms of other issues that we may have to address, because under Title VI, it says you have to remove all barriers that prevent any group of people from participating. If financing is a barrier, then we may have to come up with some capital with banks and somewhere to do some capital access and bonding. So there's creative ways to do it. I'm telling you that as a chamber leader and as a state leader, is that I'd be more than happy to take our time and our resources, sit down with you in good faith, to sit down and craft something that would make sense, I think, Larry, and that would meet your approval and the rest of the council's approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Questions, comments? All right, thank you.
Next is a presentation from the Utilities Department, Capital Improvement Program Update. Allison Swisher, Public Utilities Administrator.
Mayor and Council, thanks for giving us the time to review our capital improvement program. We've got a couple items on the current agenda that are coming up for renewal for this year. I wanted to take this time to review our program, what we've accomplished so far, and what our plan is going forward.
Thank you, Jim. Mayor, City Council, thank you for the time. I have a lot of information to get through, but I'll try and be as brief as possible. So quickly, I'm just going to kind of tell you what projects we've completed, what projects we're currently working on, and then what the future looks like for the utilities program. In 2014, the council approved spending $46 million to complete 3 major projects. These projects were the Route 6 sanitary sewer improvements. This was completed at a cost of $7.1 million. The East Side Influent Pump Station project, which was completed at a cost of $12.4 million. And the phase 2 of the long-term control plan, which is the Des Plaines River Tunnel, at a cost of $24.6 million. Then last year, the council approved borrowing over $168 million to complete additional projects. I'll talk about these projects in more detail in the following slides. First being the combined sewer overflow long-term control plan. I know many of you have are familiar with this, and for those of you who are not, I'll try and explain this without going into too much detail. So the long-term control plan is mandated by the US EPA. We have to reduce the number of combined sewer overflows to the Plains River by 2024 to no more than 20 in a 5-year period. And this is being accomplished by the long-term control plan. So what is a combined sewer overflow? Older part of town, when it was constructed, the storm sewers and the sanitary sewers were all combined. And then therefore, when it rains, the system becomes overloaded and that excess water then, which is untreated, goes into the Des Plaines River. So the long-term control plan is made up of 5 phases. We have completed 2 phases. We're currently constructing the 3rd, and then we have 2 additional phases that will be constructed following review, following completion of the phase 3. So phase 3, which is currently under construction, is the wet weather treatment facility. This is being constructed at a cost of over $38 million, and it's scheduled to be complete in spring of 2019. The schedule for the long-term control plan included phase 4, which is the east side relief sewer. However, last year we did some additional sewer modeling, and we found that additional sewer separation in the downtown area may eliminate the need for this project. It'd be more cost effective to do the sewer separation than to construct the relief sewer. In addition, you get the benefit of removing that untreated water, or that excess water that goes into the treatment facility that we'd have to pay to treat. So for those reasons, it was more cost effective to move forward with the downtown storm and sanitary sewer improvement project. And this project includes construction of a 60 and 66-inch storm sewer throughout downtown Joliet. This is one of the projects that's going to be on the agenda for tomorrow night. Its project cost is about $5.5 million. The work would begin this June and continue for approximately 1 year. Since this is in the downtown area and would impact businesses and other projects going on, all work is going to be completed at night, similar to how the project last year was completed. So that'd be 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. This just shows the area where there will be work going on downtown. You can see its various locations. The main storm sewer is going to be constructed on Lafayette, following that red line. So Lafayette to Joliet to Washington, through what will be the new Chicago Street, and then on Jefferson. So we anticipate that this will be a major coordination with all the other items happening downtown, but we've initiated that, and we'll keep everyone informed as we move forward with the project. So for the long-term control plan, our implementation schedule is shown. This is important to make sure we're on track to get everything completed by 2025. And just want to be a reminder that this is not optional. We are mandated by the US EPA to complete this work. And if we don't, then there are penalties that we will incur. Okay, the next projects I wanted to talk about are the phosphorus removal at our wastewater treatment plants. So why are we removing phosphorus? Phosphorus is one of the nutrients that can cause detrimental impacts to the waterways, most notably algae growth, and also then ultimately Gulf hypoxia in the Gulf of Mexico. This is required by our NPDES permits. So again, it is not optional. This is something that we are mandated to do. All right, the city has 3 wastewater treatment plants. The locations are shown on the map. The work at the Aux Sable and West Side plants is currently under construction and scheduled to be completed this fall. This project is at a cost of over $19 million. This project also includes expansion of the Aux Sable treatment plant so that we can be prepared for future growth on the far west side of town. The east side treatment plant, we are currently under design for this work. We would have the bid opening later this year, and then construction would occur 2019 to 2020 at an estimated project cost of $15 million. And just once again, this work is not optional. We are required to do this by the US EPA. All right, next I'm just going to talk about the 5-year sewer system rehabilitation program. So the goals of this project are to minimize basement backups, restore structural integrity, and then reduce the amount of excess water that enters the sewer system. When we have major rain events like we did a couple of weeks ago, the system gets overloaded with rain, rainwater that comes down into the system through cracks and other defects. So how did we pick the areas where we do the rehab? We have known problem areas. In addition, we did very intensive investigations to then identify what the problems are. These investigations include flow monitoring, smoke testing, dye floating, and various inspections. So the rehabilitation technique we use for the sewers is called cured in place pipelining. That image there shows you basically what it is. It's putting a new pipe inside the old pipe. Sewer rehab is not as, does not have as great of an impact on the neighborhoods when the work is done because it requires minimal excavation. And then the pipelining pretty much extends the life of the pipe by an additional 50 years. These are the projects included in the 5-year plan. As you can see, they're spread across the city. The initial 5-year plan will be completed at a cost of $34 million. We are currently finishing up the 2017 projects and about to get started with the 2018 construction work. This project will be on the agenda for tomorrow night also, and the project cost is over $8 million. And the work will begin in June, continue for approximately a year, and the neighborhoods where this work will be done include Parkview on the west side, Forest Park on the east side, and then also work in downtown. So preventive sewer rehab makes sense. For all these reasons, it can help the city save money. And the 5-year program was just a Kickstarter to get the rehab started, but this is something that we need to plan to continue on annually doing this level of sewer rehab. All right, lastly, I have the 5-year water system rehabilitation program. So the goals and objectives for this program are to improve the system reliability, improve water system operability, and then also improve water quality. And so why do we need to do this? We need to reduce water loss. That's water that's pumped out of the ground and then never billed, just lost into the system. And also reduce water main breaks. Water main breaks are costly, and the city has an excessive number of them. We average 250 per year, and the average cost to repair a main break is about $10,000. So again, how did we pick the areas where the 5-year program was completed? They were selected based on known problem areas, and then also based on the criticality. Is it near a hospital? Is it near a school? And we have a goal, which was identified in the efficiency study, of replacing a minimum of 1% of the system per year. This is just an exhibit showing the 5-year plan. I guess you can see, again, as the same as the sewer project, these projects are throughout the city. And the estimated cost for the entire 5-year program is $36 million. The 2017 project was successfully completed last year under budget and on time. And for 2018, we have a project cost of just under $6 million. And this work is going to be beginning very soon in April, and it'll be completed by the end of the year. These are all the project areas for this year. We have the Jefferson-Essington water main, work on Schreiber Avenue, finishing up phase 3 of 4 in Marycrest, and then also beginning work in Rayner Park. And this is a great exhibit that just shows why we need to do this. This is an exhibit, all those red dots are water main breaks. As you can see, there's a high concentration. We always say that you could just throw a dart at the board to pick where we need to do work. And as I was mentioning, water main breaks can be costly. And Glenwood Avenue was one of the water mains that we replaced last year. And prior to that, we had spent over $400,000 just fixing water main breaks. And so doing that project will, in the long term, save us money. So I've been mentioning a lot of money, throwing a lot of dollars very quickly. So just to total it up, we are funding these projects mostly through IEP, low interest loans from the IEPA. Our current loans are over $130 million. The loans from 2018 alone are going to be about $20 million. And then we have future projects of about $65 million. So that total is $215 million that we'll be borrowing from the IEPA. The low interest loans, typically under 2%, are so very favorable rates, but yes, we are still borrowing the money. In 2016, we approved, the City Council approved rate increases for 3 years, and 7% in 2016, 17, and 18. And then these rates will need to be evaluated again this year to make sure we're maintaining adequate revenue to pay back these loans and also have money then to continue on with future projects. Like you said, the work can't stop. Just when we end the 5-year plan, it'll need to continue on. That was a very quick overview. A lot of this information is also on the city's website, and I can answer any questions at this time.
Any questions, comments?
I just have one comment,
Yep.
Your Honor, if I may. Allison and staff, you know, I want to commend you guys for what you're doing. Your proactiveness in this piece is going to save the city a lot of money. The work that you've been doing, the way you're overseeing that and coming in, completing the projects and completing them under budget is awesome. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you all are doing. Jim and Allison, thank you so much.
No problem.
Mayor?
Yes.
Unless they were submitted, okay. No, I would echo Councilwoman Gavin's comments. You know, we were behind because years before you guys got here, that just wasn't a project, you know, or wasn't a plan. And a lot of people don't realize there's remediation going on that's even beyond what you outlined. Say out in my district, you had some remediation out in Mayfair. Remember? I haven't gotten a call about basement backups. You know, probably in 2 years. You know, and I know that you guys tried to, you know, you did a lot of testing, flow testing. You remediated a lot of the manholes, am I correct? So we have a lot going on and we're behind the ball. The only other request I have is you had that schematic with all the red dots. If you could just take a moment and explain each of the red dots to us and exactly what
I was told I only had 10 minutes, Larry, so.
No, just was good. What Betty Gavin said, the councilwoman, is good job, guys. We've needed this plan for a very, very long time, and now there's something in place, and we can literally see the light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you.
In the end, it'll save the city money.
Yep.
Absolutely, main point.
Say that louder. Save us money.
Yeah, say that.
Oh, and Mayor, one more thing. Please brag for a second on the hydrants. You know, that went away after a couple of years ago, man. You know.
Well, Councilman, if you would have heard my speech, I talked about it.
If you would have done something about the bridge, I would have been here.
How many, 8,000 hydrants were
Here we
all
go.
flushed this last year and checked, is that correct? Sounds about right.
That's about right.
Every hydrant in the city, the fire department got to, so. Good work, thank you.
It's good
Yes.
work. Thanks a lot.
Next is citizen to be heard on agenda items. Is there anyone present that would like to speak on an agenda item this evening? Seeing none, we'll pass it to the city manager to discuss tomorrow night's agenda items.
Mayor and council, tomorrow night, we will have the great opportunity to recognize 2 state champions. And I just want to point that out. We're going to have a number of people here from Joliet West Varsity cheerleading team and the Joliet Catholic Academy, both of which became champions in their respective categories. So that'll be exciting to have them come and join us for that recognition of their major accomplishment. As we look at the rest of the agenda and the consent agenda, some typical council meetings, position vacancies, payroll. Don't see anything there that is significant or out of the ordinary. Unless you had any questions or concerns, I'll move on to, we do have another drive-through permit for Dunkin' Donuts restaurant at 21670 Center Point Way. We did make sure that there's no other approval necessary for this particular project. There's no variance requests, anything else, so it's strictly the drive-through permit, and they seem to meet with all the other regulations that currently exist. So don't know that there would be any questions you might have on that item. If not, in the public hearing, this is the former Silver Cross Hospital public hearing for annexation of 8 parcels. This is round 2, and as you know, because of a technical error in the descriptions of these parcels. This is going through the process once more. Nothing else has changed other than correcting those errors that were made. After the public hearing, final action will be asked to be taken on an annexation agreement, and also for the rezoning of those particular properties, similar to what was done the first time around. Any questions you might have on the annexation of those 8 parcels for Silver Cross Hospital?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
So nothing has changed from the original agreement, so that we're still getting the stone for the museum and other projects?
That's still in the agreement, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
On ordinances, the Council Memo 12318, we have an ordinance approving a variation of use to allow the continuation of 2 single-family residences in an R2 single-family zoning district on 1 lot located at 826 Gardner Street. And I do believe, is this the particular part? So just want you to know that the petitioner is here tonight if you had any questions. But as I seem to recall, I think both the recommendations are positive that this particular application should be approved. Is there any questions you have on that matter or from the petitioners?
Questions?
Okay. Council Memo 12418, special use permit to allow a therapeutic massage and pain relief business within an existing tenant space located at 600 Theodore Street, Unit 1. I do want you to be aware that we do have the petitioner is here also tonight. I think it's Lonnie Locks. But again, just wanted to bring that to your attention. Do you have any questions tonight on the ordinance or from the applicant?
Can we have a demonstration and I'll volunteer?
Right. I was going to say.
Just kidding.
All right, if there's no other questions or comments, move on. Council Member 12518. We're bringing back, let's see, this is the first time. It was in a committee we last discussed this. This particular ordinance will incorporate adding to the outstanding balance of any debt owed to the city, the cost associated with collection of that debt. As you may recall, in a contract you approved not too long ago, I think a month or 2 ago, with a debt collection agency out of Chicago, that particular company will be compensated by 22% of the outstanding balance of the debt. And what this ordinance will do is it will add that particular cost to the outstanding balance of the debt so that the city is made whole. But again, it's capped at what the fee is to be paid to that collection agency. This is a common practice to add that, and many similar organizations have adopted similar policies to recoup those costs of collection. The applicant always has the opportunity to pay this debt early with no fee, no penalty, but these are the ones we're trying to, because we have been unsuccessful in that collection, we're proposing that cost be added to the outstanding balance. Any questions on this particular council memo? If not, moving on, Council Memo 12618. Now, if you would like, Steve Jones could come and share with you again what basically is considerable information and a very long process that has been spent in not only downsizing the city's current downtown tax increment financing district, but then proposing the establishment of a new, much larger financing TIF district for areas outside of the area to be downsided. You might have noticed that there's about 229 pages, but basically this is the last step associated in statutory requirements to make, to complete the process of these 2 TIF districts, which will certainly greatly enhance the city's ability to maximize our ability to have TIF as a critical economic development tool for a much larger area of downtown for the full life of the TIF. I think by state law is currently at 23 years. Would you like to have Mr. Jones come and speak to this? Or do you have any questions on these ordinances that will be proposed for your consideration and approval tomorrow night?
We've heard it before.
Sorry.
All right.
It's only 229 pages. You could summarize it at least now.
Sorry, Steve, we love you, but we've heard it.
Mayor, you've done a good job, Steve, in explaining it both at the committee level, right, as well as here. We used to have a TIF of a certain size. There was some success in that TIF. We have to let that TIF go on for the areas that were involved, but we were able to back out the rest of the TIF and create the new TIF. Did I just say 229 pages in 30 seconds?
Judicious use of language.
Yes, that's exactly what we're doing, so we can extend it. Then the remainder of the old TIF can be extended towards the conclusion if we so choose.
Correct. Along with the state legislature.
Right. How do you like that for somewhere?
Perfect.
Could you repeat that?
All right, thank you. Moving on resolutions, we are recommending tomorrow that the action on a resolution for a TIF development agreement with the historic Louis Joliet apartments be tabled indefinitely. And by doing so, when we're ready, we'll bring that back to you, but additional time is necessary before bringing that back to the council for your consideration. So action is only to table that item. Council Memo 12918, resolution accepting the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency low interest loan for the 2018 water main rehab program. Allison Swisher, the Public Utilities Administrator, made mention of this. The exact amount to be borrowed was mentioned, and it is still at a very low interest rate. I think the timing of such is very appropriate. I think, as we've all read, the amount of interest even on government tax exempt bonds continues to go up. So it's a great time to continue to get even very low rates in borrowing money for the 5-year plan, as previously discussed this evening on the 5-year program. Any questions on that particular matter? Council Memo 13018, resolution authorizing staff to apply for a certified local government grant. And Kendall Jackson, if you can access that mic, I think it'd be appropriate just to have Mr. Jackson mention about what property will be covered if this grant is approved, and what the local participation would be. Could you address those 2 items?
Yes, Mayor and members of the council, this particular grant would cover an assessment of all buildings in the Prison West property, and that's the property that is within the walls of the old Joliet prison. This is what's called a CLG grant. The City of Joliet is a certified local government, which is per our ordinance when we became a town with a historic preservation commission. So we are eligible to apply for these grants. This is a 70-30 matching grant program. The estimate for the survey is around $42,000. So we would have to pay that amount up front, and then we would be reimbursed up to 70% of those costs. Staff is planning on doing a request for qualifications to bring on a firm that would actually conduct the survey. We are working with the museum staff on this program, and any other questions you may have, we're here to answer them.
Questions?
Moving on to award of contracts, Council Memo 13218. The IT department and Dave Rayner, the director, has put together and vetted, gone through a process to identify companies that have been deemed eligible to meet certain criteria to be used on IT-related smaller projects over the next, I think it's 1 year time period. So that list of companies is so mentioned in that memo. We'll be asking the council to approve that. It doesn't necessarily mean that any one company is going to be used or for how much. It's just that these companies would be authorized to be administratively contracted with for small projects as needed, resulting in even a more cost-efficient way to meet critical deadlines when the need for IT services come up that our existing staff cannot either handle because of limited workload or doesn't have the expertise to address those. Any questions on that contract? Council Memo 13318 it has to do with a contract for limited flooring in the interior space of the Joliet Route 66 Stadium. As you may recall, the city is responsible to undertake certain capital improvements, and there's a small amount of flooring that is in need of replacement and repair, and this contract would make that work addressed here if the contract is approved.
Mayor?
Yes.
I want to know why this didn't come to baseball committee.
Excellent question. Let's see.
It should have come to us first.
Which director, was it Jim Trisna? Can you help answer that question?
Not a good reason, Jim. We're actually, the bottom line is we're used to taking all our contracts to public service. I'm not gonna lie. We can take it off the agenda and go to your committee first.
Well, that's up to the chairman.
Yeah, if you'd like. I mean,
we all
it
asked
just,
about it.
we're used to always going to public service with all public works projects. And this is kind of an ancillary project for us. But if you'd like, we could take it off the agenda and go to that committee first.
This was approved by public service already?
No, it'll go to public. The plan is to take it to public service tomorrow evening at 4 o'clock.
Well, why don't we do that, and going forward, everything stadium related goes to the stadium committee?
Because we have a change order for the field turf project on there also, one of those contracts.
Well, my only question is, we're responsible for improvements, but we don't, the committee, I'm not speaking for the chairman, I'm speaking for myself. We don't know where this flooring is going or where it is, and maybe they need more in another area, because I know some of the other, I looked at the memo, and I think there's a couple areas that they're missing here that really need the new flooring, but without having a meeting, I don't, to ask those questions, I don't know. Personally, I don't know where this is going, and I don't
feel. You're probably gonna attend the public service committee tomorrow and get involved. I don't want to stall this for bureaucratic error. It shouldn't happen again going forward, but it is being met and discussed tomorrow, so it'd be appropriate to go to.
But they already have the bid, so they won't be able to make changes tomorrow.
It could get voted down in committee.
All right, then. All right, thanks, Jim.
Okay.
Moving on to Council Memo 13418. We have a contract for the 2018 sanitary sewer rehab project, which Ms. Switcher had mentioned earlier in this evening's CIP presentation. The same is true with Council Memo 13518 on a downtown storm and sanitary sewer improvement project. Do you have any questions on either one of those two projects? We could have the public utilities personnel answer those if need be. If not, moving on, Council Memo 13618, a contract for the 921 East Washington Street Stream Bank Stabilization Project. Any questions on that particular project? And last, Council Memo 13718, requests for authorization on a professional service agreement for the 2019 Water System Rehabilitation Program. Any questions on that contract? Moving on, amendments, change orders, payments. These also are coming up for consideration tomorrow night in the committee. Change order number 1 for Joliet Minor League Baseball Park Landscaping Project. Change order number 2 for the Combined Sewer Overflow Long-Term Control Plan Phase 3 Wet Weather Treatment Facility Project, and authorization to approve payment for the contractor snow removal for storms on February 8th through the 11th, 2018. The committee will consider these tomorrow night prior to the regular council meeting. Is there any questions on any of those memos?
And just so clear, the change order, does they have to do the installation of the turf?
Yes.
So they can't be delayed 2 weeks?
No, we should not delay that 2 weeks.
Okay.
No, it's not the turf.
If there's nothing else, that kind of concludes what the agenda has listed for council consideration and action on tomorrow night.
Next, we have public comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak under public comments this evening? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
And if I might just add, yes, there is no closed session topics for tonight. So we have nothing that would necessitate an executive session.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Been motion and second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.